Right. Let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a beautifully poignant story sourced from Gravonix Stories called The Clockwork Heart of Constant Dedication. And we're going to extract some absolutely incredible real-world lessons about the sheer power of quiet, unseen commitment. Look, we live in a world that constantly demands attention, right? Everyone wants applause. But this narrative, it asks us to look at the flip side of that coin, the absolute power of just showing up day after day, totally in the shadows.
So, think about this for a second. What if the person who kept your entire city on time was someone whose name almost nobody knew? It's a fascinating thought experiment. Every single morning, before the first baker even flipped its open sign, before the absolute first school bell rang out, and way before the early trains rolled out of the station, one elderly man named Edward was already hard at work. And here's the kicker. He wasn't doing this for a round of applause. He definitely wasn't doing it for some massive paycheck. He did it simply because, well, someone had to keep time moving.
Section 1. The Invisible Caretaker. The Morning Climb.
Now I want you to really picture the intense physical toll of this daily ritual. Every single day, at exactly 4:45 a.m., Edward unlocked this massive, heavy wooden door beneath the city's oldest clock tower. And then he faced 312 narrow stone steps. Guys, that's literally like hiking up a 15-story building before you've even had a sip of coffee. Imagine him climbing up there in the pitch black, one hand holding a lantern, the other lugging this huge brass key. Once he finally reached the top, he didn't just casually wind the giant clock. No way. He meticulously cleaned every single gear, checked every spring, wiped away every speck of dust. Only after all that intense care did he actually wind it. Moments later, the whole city would hear the morning bell. To them, it was just another Tuesday. But to Edward, it was another promise kept.
Moving right along to Section 2, The Philosophy of Trust, The New Reporter.
So, the source text introduces us to this young newspaper reporter named Olivia. She wanted the inside scoop, pitching an interview to Edward about being the man nobody notices. And what does Edward do? He just laughs softly and completely deflects the praise. He tells her, the clock deserves the attention, not me. The guy had literally zero ego about his role. None at all.
Olivia actually pushed back a bit, asking if it bothered him that people didn't even know his name, and Edward just smiled, and he delivered this absolute gem of a response. If they're living peacefully, my work is already being noticed. Just let that sink in for a second. True success, true lasting impact can be completely silent. Olivia actually jotted that exact sentence down in her notebook because it just so perfectly captures the whole essence of selfless service. There's this other great moment with a little girl named Sophie. She asked Edward why he bothered fixing a clock that everyone already trusted. Edward's response? Because trust disappears the moment we stop taking care of it. And wow, did that stick. The story notes that years later, Sophie actually grew up to be a civil engineer, and she remembered those exact words every single time she designed a bridge or a school, knowing for a fact that safety and reliability require constant, vigilant care.
Section 3. When time almost stopped. The broken gear.
3. That is the exact number of completely sleepless nights Edward powered through one brutal winter. Basically, he heard this weird metallic sound and found a tiny cracked gear. The experts told the city it would take weeks to get a replacement, and you know how it goes. Panic started spreading that the clock would just stop. But Edward, he wasn't having it. He spent every single evening locked in that tower's storage room, engineering a temporary fix out of spare parts. After 3 sleepless nights, boom, he fixed it. The clock didn't miss a beat, and honestly, most citizens never even realized they dodged a crisis, which is exactly how Edward preferred it.
And this next part brilliantly shows the contrast when a real citywide emergency hit. One summer night, a massive storm completely knocked out power across the grid, total blackout. Modern technology failed instantly. Digital clocks went dark, phone networks totally collapsed. But the old clock tower? Its face was still glowing, and it just kept ticking along, keeping perfect time. In the pitch black, people literally looked up, and that tower became the city's guide until the power finally came back. That was the night thousands of people finally clicked with why preserving old, reliable responsibilities matters so much.
Which brings us to Section 4, the unseen impact. Edward's retirement.
So after 42 years of backbreaking service, Edward finally announces his retirement. He fully expected to just quietly slip away. But instead, the town square was absolutely flooded by this massive, diverse crowd. We're talking teachers, doctors, shop owners, police officers, students, musicians, the whole shebang. The sheer variety of people standing there showed just how far his silent daily grind had actually reached into the community.
And every single person in that crowd shared memories that were deeply tied to the sound of his bell. Their morning walks, their graduations, wedding days, big family reunions. By just doing his job perfectly every single day, his quiet consistency literally became the soundtrack to everyone's major life events. He was woven into the fabric of their lives, and they didn't even realize it until he was stepping down.
Section 5. A legacy of consistency. The final lesson.
Right before he walked out of the tower for the last time, Edward handed over his heavy brass key to his apprentice, and he gave him this one piece of advice. Never wind the clock because people expect it. Wind it because someone depends on it. The apprentice just nodded, because he got it. He understood the real meaning. True consistency isn't just about mindless repetition. It's not about checking off chores. It's about honoring the people who rely on you, even if they have no idea you're doing it.
Edward's legacy was literally set in stone. Well, bronze, years later when a plaque was placed right beneath the tower. It read, "The strongest foundations of every community are built by people who keep showing up." Tourists stop to admire the clock, the locals smile at the plaque, and those bells just keep ringing. Not because Edward is still climbing those stairs, but because the standard of absolute excellence he set lived on through the people he trained.
So what is the big takeaway from this explainer? What does this mean for us? Look, your effort might never get a round of applause. You probably won't get a front-page headline or a viral post for just doing your job well. But someone, somewhere, is living a better life because you chose to stay consistent. Never, ever underestimate the power of quiet dedication. It genuinely changes the world, one ordinary day at a time.
If this explainer covering the story from Gravonix stories hit home for you today, do me a favor. Drop down into the comments right now and type, "I choose consistency." And hey, make sure to subscribe for more content breaking down powerful stories just like this one. Because at the end of the day, true success isn't built in one extraordinary, flashy moment. It's built through ordinary days repeated with extraordinary commitment. Which leaves us with just one question to think about. If you choose to be the reliable clockmaker of your own life today, whose world will you unknowingly keep spinning tomorrow?